Hi, and welcome to chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much for all of you that have been with me on this journey up till now. It's been 12 chapters of this time right now, and it's been a lot of almost 3 years of doing this online. Well, not only online, but also in person. So thank you so much for being here. As I was saying earlier, you've been my support, you've been my inspiration, you've been my courage. And without that, without all of you, I could not have made it this far. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 is called Nature. Let me bring it up on the screen for you. The enjoyer and consciousness. I'm going to make some modifications here before we get started because it has done what it sometimes does. Okay. All right. Chapter 13 is a very interesting place in the Bhagavad Gita. It is the part where we shift from bhakti to gyan. From bhakti, which is devotion, to gyan, which is knowledge. So this part is going to be somewhat intellectual. And if it goes above your head, I will try and, I'm very committed to try and make sure that it doesn't. So if it is complicated, I've tried to simplify it. If it feels like a lot, I'm trying to make it so that you can follow in as easy a way as possible. So bear with me and I'll try and do that, all that for you. Okay, can I lock it? Hold on. Just a little technical complication, just sorting that out, and I'll be with you in just a moment. There we are. Okay, deep breath. Sometimes difficult trying to do it all by yourself, trying to manage the technology and the people coming in and everything. So thank you for just bearing with me. All right. So nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. Complex topic. We'll see where it takes us. This time, don't be in a hurry. Just relax and enjoy what you're going to learn. You're going to learn a lot today. So there are 3 parts to the Gita, and I'd like to make you aware of those. We've been going through it, and here's what it's all about. The first part deals with action or karma. The second with devotion or bhakti. And the third deals with knowledge or gyan. And that this third is the chapters 13 to 18. What we've been doing till now, chapters 1 to 6 and 7 to 12 after that, have been interesting because the first section, which was dealing with karma, was all about how do you live in this world. It was more practical guidance on how to live in this world and how do you manage the affairs of the world. So that was going on in chapters 1 to 6. And how do you, while being in the world, how do you understand God and how do you approach God? And the chapter 7 to 12 told us something about the nature of God and the nature of devotion. And so we got a sense of that. And now chapters 13 to 18 will take us into a deeper knowledge. So you may say, well, why do I need such deep knowledge? And you'd be absolutely right in asking such a question. But the reason we need knowledge is to really help us go beyond simple faith. A lot of religions are faith-based. And the Vedas are not. The word Veda means knowledge. And that knowledge is actually the distinguishing factor of what makes the Vedic wisdom different from all religions in the world today. So let's go over a little bit of what we've experienced with faith-based religions. Faith religions are subject to interpretation. In other words, I believe something, and therefore because I believe it, it must be true. Since I'm going on the basis of belief, and belief is something my mind is going to create. So in other words, I'm interpreting the scripture a certain way. Anyone can interpret any way. So you have a teacher who twists it around, who interprets it a certain way, and then you have distortion. And then that distortion leads to conflict. People arguing, people disagreeing, people having all kinds of conflicts with each other. And ultimately it leads to disillusionment. So if I can take some of the Abrahamic religions, especially Christianity, as an example of that, you see so many interpretations, so many different versions, and so many different churches, so many different followers as a result of that. Each one of them has their own twist on it and their own distortion. And all that would have been fine, because after all, we are unique and we have our unique way of looking at things, and that would have been fine, except that when it's faith-based, we tend to get very zero-focused on a particular teacher or ideology. To take, for example, the whole conflict that has been arising these days about abortion or gay rights or any of this stuff. Christ never made a big deal of that. And yet those who are faithful adherents of this faith have made it as if it was everything. That has led to conflict with all the other people. Christ was about compassion. Christ was about love. Christ was about loving everyone. Love your neighbor as yourself. He was not about creating divisions, at least not the divisions of within the church itself, not within within the faith itself. But that's where we've gone. And things that were small deal that could have been discussed have become everything that could have been resolved if it were done in a reasonable and rational way. And so a lot of people have become very disillusioned by faith-based religion, seeing the kind of fanaticism, seeing the kind of extremism that has caused them to become disillusioned, and most of them have turned towards some form of atheism. Spirituality has been another. It can often be a kind of atheism because it wants to reject the idea that there is a personal God. And to that extent, when it tries to reject the idea of a personal God, we start to see a lot of conflict arising in the minds of those who follow spirituality, because for them, there is no being out there such as God. How can there be? After all, the only God they've ever heard about was someone who was sitting in the clouds and was going to punish people and send them to hell. But that's another belief system that you're rejecting. See, to reject something, to rebel against something, is not the same as really understanding it. So instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, instead of just rejecting religion the way it was taught by the Abrahamic religions, the Gita, the Vedas offer you a different option, and that option is knowledge. What is the benefit of knowledge? Let's examine that. Knowledge allows us, because the way the Vedas teach it, it's not just about memorizing a bunch of stuff. It's not just about reading a book, but it's about actually doing the practice and having the experience. And that experience then produces the evidence that you need, that gives you the realization and brings about the change within you. This process actually is what makes all the difference. So if you follow my line of thinking here, you'll see that this is about evidentiary spirituality, spirituality that actually changes your consciousness, your way of looking at the world, and the way you live. It is all about that. If you simply read, that's not enough. If you do the experiments, you do the work of meditation, of practice, then you begin to see the change. And that change is really a shift from the inside. And it's a shift in the way you look at the world. And the symptoms are given very clearly, so you know whether you're on the right track or not. So we'll get to that in the Bhagavad Gita as we go on in the later chapters of this chapter 13 itself, or later sections of chapter 13, should I say. All right. So having said that, let's get back to the actual verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjun said, "Oh my dear Krishna." So interesting how he addresses him, right? He's talking to the Supreme Being God, who has been his friend all his life. And now he's got to know, oh, who is this being, this friend of mine, who I've known all along. But now he's revealed himself to be the absolute Supreme Being, or the Lord of all creation, so to speak. And now that this has been revealed, Arjun still continues to address him as, my dear Krishna. I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, and Purusha, the enjoyer, the field, Kshetra, and the knower of the field, Kshetragyam, true knowledge, Gyan, and the goal of knowledge. So let me break this down for you a little. These are concepts taken from Vedanta. This was a very popular philosophy at the time. So because of that, the popularity of this philosophy and this teaching, Arjun is seeking clarification, just as if you'd heard certain things in your life and you were talking to Krishna, you'd want some clarification about those things. Well, what about this and what about that? So Arjun's not taking anything just kind of like blindly. He's questioning, he is inquiring, and you are encouraged to do the same. Please don't believe anything I say. Ask, inquire. Let your mind really try to grasp what is being taught to you here. All right? So he's talking about Prakriti, nature. Okay, so what is the correlation between nature and Purusha? This is a concept in the Vedanta, that there is the enjoyer of nature and there is nature. And the odd part is, all of us think, humanity thinks, we are the enjoyer of nature. But we are strangers into this world. We came here, the world was already here. It's like walking into somebody's house. The house was already there, it was already furnished, it was already decorated, it was beautiful. And we walked in there and we said, this is my land, this is my place, and I own it, and I claim it. And then we set about to enjoy it. And the owner is like watching you on this video camera in the house, looking and enjoying his entire house and ruining and trashing it, because that's what we're doing to the planet. But this house existed and was created by someone, and we don't even know who that someone is. We don't even know who the owner of this house is. But that is God. And that owner is Purusha. He's meant to be the enjoyer. And Prakriti, nature, is to be enjoyed by the Creator. That Prakriti, that nature, includes not only the creation of this world that we see, but all the creatures in it, including us. We are also for His enjoyment. He said, what enjoyment does God want from us? Is He trying to use us, manipulate us, take advantage of us? No. The most sublime enjoyment is love. And if you want to know what is it that God wants from us, it is just that, love. Nothing more, nothing less. You cannot bribe God with all your gifts and charities and things you do, and even if they are sacrifices, and even if they are great, austerities you may perform, fasting and being a breatharian or whatever else you might be, you can't impress God with any of that. There is only one thing that can captivate God, and that is love. So, nature and the enjoyer of nature, the field, which will be explained what that is. The field is this body, actually. And the knower of the field, who is the one that knows what this is? And then true knowledge. What is true knowledge? And what is the goal of knowledge? Incredible questions. Let's see what Krishna has to say. Bhagavan Sri Krishna said, this body is called Kshetra, the field. And one who knows this body is called Kshetragya, the knower of the field. Okay? One who knows this body. Now, knowing the body simply is not about knowing it through biology or understanding how it functions. That is good, but we are trying to get somewhere else. You should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. To understand this body and its knower is true knowledge, and that is my opinion. So, we'll unpack this in just a minute. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity, kshetram, how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. The knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially in the Vedanta Sutra, and is presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Alright, so now we will begin really diving into it. I'm going to read you this list and then break it down for you and then give you the whole context, okay? This here is kind of like the key part. The 5 great elements, the mind, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifest, the 10 senses, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of its activities and its interactions. All right. Now that was a lot for you. Let's simplify it. So the body is considered the field of activities. The body is the field in which all this activity takes place. Right? Before I go further into giving you some insight on that, let's talk about it. The body is the field in which all the activities take place. In other words, everything we do through this body. If I see something, I see it through this body. If I hear something, I hear it through this body. To the degree that this body is capable of hearing, I am able to hear. Whatever frequencies it cannot hear, I cannot perceive. What it cannot see, I cannot. And the way it shows it to me is the way I see it. I believe what I see, but I only see what the body shows me, what it is capable of showing me, what it was designed to show me. But is what I see real? Is what I see actually going on? Is what I hear all there is? Am I missing out a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not even hearing or seeing or touching or experiencing? The answer is yes. There is a whole lot that we are neither seeing nor hearing nor touching nor experiencing. But we are limited by the perceptions of this body. When we begin to understand that, we begin to start inquiring more deeply as to, well, what else is possible? He then goes on to explain here that the body goes through 6 stages. It is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, it decays, and finally vanishes. The field or the body is therefore a non-permanent material thing. So this is the field of activities. This is the field in which we operate, in which we live, through which we experience everything. And this field is non-permanent material thing. Notice how this is worded. In all our pursuit, we want something permanent. We want a house that is permanent. We want a body that is permanently youthful. We don't get. We want to remember things. We want to live forever. We want this. Our nature is to want and to seek and to desire permanence, including in our relationships, in our romantic life, and in everything. We want permanence. And yet everything is impermanent. The economy is impermanent. The world political situation is impermanent. There seems to be peace, and then suddenly there is conflict and war and chaos. And it's distressing. And it upsets so many people. Laws that were made at one time are suddenly torn up and thrown away. Things we took for granted are no longer something we can count on. And it becomes very bewildering. The constant and never-ending change that is taking place in this world is extremely upsetting. Yet we are beings, more so because we are beings who actually are unchangeable. Our perspective is actually from a place of eternality. We are eternal beings in an ever-changing world. Our nature is to seek the eternal. Our nature is to want things to be eternal. That's what we are, and that's what we seek. But we are never given the fulfillment of that. We never get to actually experience that. We never get to experience any of the things that we want eternally. Whether that is love, whether that is possessions, whether that is this body, none of it lasts forever. And as a result of which, we are distressed and unhappy. We are unfulfilled, and we feel a sense of constant strife and struggle as we try to keep on against change. Actually, everything keeps changing, and now we have to try to do our best to grapple our minds around it and try to figure it out. So therein lies our suffering. Therein lies the very basic cause of suffering, an eternal being in an ever-changing world. So what to do about that? Let's turn to the Gita to find out. But before we find out, Krishna is going to make us a little more aware of the nature of this world. So let's go on to what he says here. He starts off with the 5 great elements. So let's start with that. All around us, the world, the entire material creation is made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether or space. Right? These were the classical elements, the great elements as they were called. Then we have what is called the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and ego. And this is what perceives the world. This is, the senses do, but this is what then interprets that world. The mind, the intelligence, the ego. They interpret that world, they interpret that environment, and they try to make meaning out of it. Is there any real meaning? Perhaps not. But we constantly try to make meaning out of it. Then there is what he refers to as the unmanifest, the 3 modes of nature. By the way, these were all what was mentioned in that earlier verse. I'm just kind of breaking it down for you, taking each word, each section, or rather each word, and kind of showing you what he's talking about there. So the unmanifest there refers to the 3 modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And in the Gita, we'll talk about that in great detail. But these are states of consciousness in this world, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, sattva gun, rajagun, tamagun. These actually determine the state of consciousness that we have as human beings and how we are able to live in this world. Okay, details we'll do in a later chapter. It's coming up in the next few weeks. So then there are the 10 senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. And completely interesting term here. We acquire knowledge of the world through our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our touch. Through that, we acquire knowledge of the world. So these are the knowledge acquiring senses. Then, of course, our mind, intellect, and ego will interpret that information. And then we will act in this world using our voice, our legs, our hands, and of course then we have the areas of the anus and genitals. These are the 5 working senses. And then there are the objects of senses, the things that we smell and touch. Warmth, so in the sense of cool or warmth, and taste and sound. Okay. All of this are the objects. So out of this now comes all the stuff that we begin to desire. So these subtle elements, the interaction of these 5 elements in the body now causes desire. Some things you like and want, and some things you don't like and don't want. You desire and hate, right? Or pleasure and pain. So therein is the duality. Because of these senses and the way they perceive, and then the mind interprets, now we begin to desire and hate, discover pleasure and pain. And this is actually what is driving everything we do in the world. Everything we do is driven by these impulses for pleasure and pain. Everything we do is based on desire and hate. I like this, I don't like this. I agree with this, I disagree with this. This is good, this is bad, right, wrong, right? So desire and hate. And it could be at a global level, it could be at a personal level, it could come down to the things you like to eat and drink, and the places you like to live and don't like to live, the people you want to hang out with and don't want to hang out with. It's all this, the mind sorting these inputs that are coming in through the senses and then organizing it into desire and hate, pleasure and pain, right? But it's all made up. That's the beauty you've got to start seeing. It's all made up. And the moment you understand it's made up, you can start making it anything you want to make it. Once you realize that your mind is making things up, right? Those things could be called pleasure or pain, but you can actually sit in that which you call pain and begin to enjoy it. And you can sit in that which you call pleasure and actually learn to distance yourself from it. I'll give you a practical example. I used to love sugar. And I had to learn that this thing is not good for me. Sweet things aren't good for me. And I had to create almost a process of getting de-addicted, or whatever you call that, breaking off an addiction for something sweet. It was hard work. It was my pleasure. But I had to learn that this thing is not good for me and I need to get away from it. And likewise, people find that kind of pleasure with alcohol or with drugs or with whatever else. And we have to be able to be more intelligent and understand what is best for us. But if we simply give in to that which we desire or that which gives us pleasure, and if we simply chase after those things, then we will find ourselves on an endless treadmill, never really being satisfied. You can always keep chasing after the next best thing, next best food, the next best drink, the next best partner, the next best lover, whatever it is you want, and you'll keep on and on and on chasing and never really reach a place where it is you are satisfied, content, and fulfilled. That won't happen as long as you're doing this. Okay. And the subtle elements, or the living symptoms actually, are consciousness and conviction or belief. This is very interesting. Consciousness is the symptom that a person is alive, right? We know that they are conscious of things. If they go into a coma, then their consciousness level has gone down drastically and they're almost unconscious now. They may not even be responding to things, but they've still got some heartbeat going on and so on, and we try to keep them alive in the hope they'll come back. But consciousness is really what distinguishes us from a plant, from a rock or something else. Even the plant is conscious. Even the fish is conscious, even the animal, the bird, they're all conscious. They all have a soul within them. If they didn't have a soul within them, they would not be growing, they would not be moving, they would not be able to function. You see, a lot of people think that animals don't have consciousness. They absolutely do. Nothing can move. Matter cannot move in and of itself. A rock cannot fly, right? You need specific kind of consciousness to come into matter for that matter to be able to now move. Now, it could be that it comes into a fish, it could be that it comes into a bird, it could be that it comes into an animal, or it comes into a human. The consciousness is the same. The DNA of this organism it has come into might be different, and therefore it will grow differently and it will develop differently. The human is considered the highest form of evolution in this material world. But that human comes with great responsibility, great intelligence, mind, intelligence, and ego. That intelligence is what distinguishes us from the animal. Not because now we are here to control them and eat them and exploit them. No, because we need to take care of them. We need to take care of the planet. We need to take care of the animals on it and not be indiscriminately destroying or killing them. Our intelligence is there because we are responsible, and we are responsible for everything we do. Only humans have karma. Animals do not. They do not have that quality of intelligence that we have. That intelligence gives us a sense of responsibility. The responsibility is linked up with our karma. It is that karma that is linked up to the quality of life that we have and how we experience this world. So, along with consciousness comes a set of beliefs. We all have a set of beliefs. You may believe that you are a man or a woman. You may believe that you are from this country or that, this religion or that. You may believe. People sometimes blame everything on religion. No, it's on belief that the problem lies. Belief is a very slippery slope. Belief is the basis of the ego. Belief is the basis of nationalism. Belief is the basis of religiosity. Belief is the basis of all conflict. Because you believe something, therefore you think it is true. But I wish to tell you something very perhaps difficult. That because you think something doesn't make it true. Because you feel it doesn't make it true. And because you believe it still doesn't make it true. In fact, because you perceive it doesn't mean it's true. Because you see it, hear it, feel it, touch it, still doesn't make it true. We want the truth. And the truth is distinguished in the Vedas as that which is eternal. Only the eternal is that which is true, and it is called Sat, S-A-T. Sat means that which is true. And that which is true is differentiated from everything else by being that which is eternal, that which is beginningless. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Consciousness is Chit and Ananda is bliss. This is the nature of the soul. We are by nature Sat. Our soul is the truth. It is the truth we have been seeking. The truth is not out there. The truth is in here. We are Sat, we are the truth. We are Chit, which is consciousness. And we are Ananda, we are bliss. We are the happiness we have been seeking. Once you get this very clear, happiness cannot be found outside. It is only found inside. When you find truth, to find truth, it is only here. If you want to believe in something, believe in that which lies within you. And that which lies within you has no belief, it just is. Because belief, the moment you believe in one thing and I believe in something else, we are no longer talking about the truth. We are talking about made up beliefs that are subjective, not objective, not eternal, not lasting. So that is the big difference. All right, so that was a really tough part. I had to kind of break it down for you. All right, now these are the qualities of spiritual advancement: humility, pridelessness, nonviolence. So let me first go to the end of this so you understand. If you read the last line, all this I declare to be knowledge, and what is contrary to this is ignorance. All right, so let's go back. Humility, this is what real knowledge is, that which leads to humility, that which leads to pridelessness. Notice he starts with humility, and to me humility is one of the most important things. In a world which is full of narcissists today, it is one of the most important things for people on our planet to learn humility. And humility comes from learning that I am nothing. I am insignificant. The ego cannot stand that. And because a lot of our psychology has focused upon self-esteem and ego and all of that, I understand the ego needs that. And we need to be able to balance it with the other part that the mind keeps telling us, which is you're worthless, you're not good enough, something is wrong with you. Yes, something is wrong with you. We are all flawed. This is a great truth. We are worthless because we are a tiny speck in the universe. We are insignificant. We are nothing. And when you see that, there will be humility. There will be humility. And this world needs a great dose of humility. So you need confidence. I understand that. You need to be able to function in the world. You need to be able to get things done. And for that, you need confidence. Absolutely. But at the same time, and that's what the ego needs, but the bigger truth is humility, to recognize our insignificance. And from there comes the prayer to God to support us, to love us, to be with us, to know that He's got our back. That's what Krishna is reassuring us here. So, humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity. These qualities are so important. Then how do you learn these? By approaching a bona fide spiritual master. What else will you learn? Cleanliness, steadiness, and self-control. It's not about rampantly pursuing desire, but about self-control. Renunciation of the objects of sense gratification. What does it mean to renounce something? It doesn't mean to give up the world. It means to recognize that the objects of sense gratification will never truly satisfy me. It doesn't mean you should not have them. Have them, but do not be attached to them. And do not expect them to give you the happiness, the pleasure that you seek. Have a house, have a car, but be detached from it. Have things, be detached from them. Nothing belongs to any of us. That is the key takeaway that needs to be had. We all need to learn this, that nothing belongs to us. Everything was here before we came, and everything will be here after we leave. We will die one day and we will leave it all behind. So nothing belongs to us, because if it did belong to you, you'd take it with you. But you won't. I won't. None of us will. And that is the meaning of renunciation. To have and yet not to be attached. It doesn't mean about giving up the world and walking away and becoming a monk or a sannyasi or something like that. That I have not seen to work too well for some people, most people actually. Okay. Absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. Ooh, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. That's a really wild one, to recognize that this is actually something evil. As in unwanted, undesirable. This is not who we are. This is unnatural. And once you realize it is unnatural, you will no longer crave to keep on enjoying the things of the world, but will realize, hey, this ain't my home. I got to make plans to get out of here. I got to start devoting myself to a higher cause and be able to find a way to be able to liberate myself from this world. And then he continues, non-attachment to children, wife, home, and the rest. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. Now this is a key statement that has been made throughout the Gita, equanimity. Even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. Be very careful of this. This is exactly how you will know where you stand on your spiritual journey. When you can take good and bad things that happen to you and treat them just the same, then you will know that you have come to a place where you are sthir. That means you are steady. Your consciousness is now steady because you are not fazed by the good and bad things that come. You are steady. You are equal in both happiness and distress. What else do we need? Constant and unalloyed devotion to God, resorting to solitary places, detachment from the general mass of people. So all of us need to practice being by yourself. A lot of folks can't handle being alone, but being alone is a huge part of your spiritual journey. Being alone, being content, and being satisfied with yourself. If you're a person who always wants to be around other people, then step back. Learn to be at peace with you. Learn to be content with you and not always be needing to be around people or to be doing things all the time. I see a lot of folks who want to just be doing something all the time. The entire weekend is about doing something, right? The entire week is about doing something, and the entire weekend and the evening and every time is just about doing until you completely collapse. But that is not life. Learn to be with yourself, doing nothing, thinking nothing, just being with you. Being with the inner you, not with your thoughts, because that's not a great companion either. That's certainly not something worth hanging out with. But really being with you, with the real you. That means breathe, come into your body, and learn to just relax into yourself. Practice this, make time out for this. This makes all the difference on your spiritual journey. Accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth, all these I declare to be knowledge, and what is contrary to these is ignorance. You know, our world has been so focused upon knowledge of material things. We've tried to study everything from the outer realms of the galaxy to the inner aspects of the body to engineering and making things and creating things, and it's all external. But real knowledge is not external. Real knowledge is internal. It is about you. That is real knowledge. And that knowledge is not bookish knowledge. It is really experiential knowledge. It is something you will discover by spending time with yourself. So try to take this. If there's anything you take home today, take this one point home. That I want to be able to spend time with me and get to know me. And I don't mean your mind, I don't mean your interests, I don't mean your the things you enjoy, I don't mean your hobbies, I don't mean your interests, I mean the you without all of that. Peel away all of those layers of who you think you are and what you like and what you want and what your story is, and learn to just be with you. And you will begin to see huge changes starting to happen the more you hang out with just you. No music, no podcast, no reading, no nothing. Just hang out with you. No thoughts even. It is the most difficult thing you will do, to do nothing. The most difficult thing on earth. And yet, once you start doing it, once you start tasting the sweetness of this inner world, you will become addicted to it and you will want to keep coming back here for more and more and more. So, try. The only way you'll know what I'm talking about is to try. All right, Krishna continues. I shall now explain the knowable knowing, which you will taste the nectar. This is what I'm talking about. Taste the nectar of the eternal. The eternal is that which is within you and that which is all around you. So, I shall now explain the knowable knowing, which you will taste the nectar of the eternal. It is beginningless, as I said, eternal, right? It is beginningless and is subordinate to me. So Krishna is the one who's in charge of that. It is called Brahman or spirit, and it lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So in this material world, everything has a cause and an effect. Everything is one truth depending upon another seeming truth. But when you go beyond cause and effect, when you go beyond all duality, then you will come to that beginningless truth, that spirit that lies beyond this world. And that does not require some major shift, it just requires a little time, a little bit of inward introspection, to look within. And this is just a way of saying it, I would say. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way, the Supersoul, the great soul, you can say, or the Paramatma, exists. So, it's trying to present an idea that God is everywhere. And what that means is that you could look at that, oh, he's everywhere, his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, but it's a metaphor. And it really just means that God is everywhere, in every atom of the creation. And so you can experience God wherever you are. You may want to go to a temple, church, mosque, whatever it is you go to. That's a wonderful place. But if you only think God lives there, then you're making a big mistake, because God has no religion. God does not have any faith or belief or anything that God goes by. God is everywhere. And if you haven't experienced the God that is everywhere, then your journey hasn't yet begun. Yeah, you have faith. It's like if I want to get from point A to point B, I live in San Diego and I want to get to LA. I see the map. The map says I have to get on this freeway and I have to go in this direction, and that's great. So I've read the book, right? I've looked at the map. I know how to get there. But I must embark on the journey. I must get in my car and I must, or whatever, I'm taking some kind of public transportation, but I must get in my vehicle and I must begin the journey. And on the journey, there will be many things I will see and experience. That's all part of that journey. And so we all have to get out on that journey and begin to experience it. So the God you've believed in or understood from some book needs to be now experienced in the world. And when you begin to see that God everywhere and in everyone, then you now have your first level of experience of God. The Supersoul Paramatma. So now we're calling this energy that is present everywhere, Brahman, and another word is Paramatma, is the original source of all senses, yet has no senses. It is unattached, although the maintainer of all living beings. It transcends the modes of nature and at the same time is the master of all modes of material nature. The Supreme Truth, or God, exists both internally, meaning within you, and externally. in the moving and the non-moving. So within all living creatures, moving and non-moving, even within the rocks and the mountains and the oceans. So exists internally and externally in the moving and the non-moving. He is the power of the material senses to see or to know let's go over that. And how would you get to know him? Through your senses. You will use your senses to experience and perceive the presence of God. And then you will connect the dots in your mind and say, I'm experiencing God in the wind, in the fragrance of the flowers, in the beauty, in the warmth of the sun, in the beauty of all that I see around me. I'm experiencing God. So you will use the material senses to get to know and experience God. And although far away, he is also near to all. It's such a big realization to have, that God can be far away, some other place altogether, and yet be perceived everywhere. And you say, well, how is this possible? How can something be far away and yet near? You have to understand that God has capabilities that we don't have. You can be in one place, God can be in every place. That's the difference. And the analogy could be very simple, like the sun and its rays. Its rays are everywhere, yet the sun is in one place. Right? So the same way, God is everywhere. Or for that matter, the president of the country. The president of the country is in one place, but the influence is everywhere. In everything that is around you, from the laws and the police to the taxes you pay, to the restaurants you go, everywhere you go, you are being there. The laws that were set in place, and of who the head is, the president of the country or the prime minister, depending on where you are. That influence is everywhere. So also is God everywhere. Although far, far away, he is also near to all. Although the Supersoul, Paramatma, appears to be divided, it is never divided. It is situated as one. Although it is the maintainer of every living entity, it is to be understood that it creates and devours all. So God is not only the creator and maintainer, but also the destroyer of everything. Everything is destroyed at some point and then comes back again. Destruction and creation go hand in hand. It's a very important point to understand how destruction and creation go hand in hand. Birth and death go hand in hand. The fact that we are born means we will die. The fact we die means we will be born again. That is the beginning of the Gita. The Gita starts from that. For one who is born, it is certain that he will die, and for one who has died, it is certain he will be born again. So once you understand that, you realize that birth and death are actually an illusion. They're like the rising and setting sun. Right? The sun actually never dies. And so also we never die. And that which is therefore it is the material creation that is created and destroyed. Matter is created and destroyed, but not us, not the living entity. The Supersoul or Paramatma is the source of light in all luminous objects. It is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. It is knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge. It is situated in everyone's heart. So incredible that God, who is everywhere, is also in your heart, within you right now, the nearest thing to you, closer than even anything else, right? The closest that you could ever imagine is sitting within your heart, perceiving everything you do, experiencing every thought you have, feeling every feeling you have, being part of every experience that you are going through, feeling your pain, feeling your joy, feeling everything that you're experiencing in this world, holding your hand through it all, loving you and letting you know that you are okay, that none of this can destroy you, that the world will always be there, doing what it does, but you shall not be destroyed. You will always survive. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. My devotee who realizes this thoroughly attains my nature. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. This is a powerful statement. If you look at what Einstein said and what Krishna is saying 3,000 years before Einstein, it's the same thing. What did Einstein say? He said, matter cannot be created or destroyed. That was the whole basis of his theory of E is equal to mc squared and so on. Big realization of Einstein. We adore the person because of that. We hold him in the highest esteem because of that. And here's Krishna 5,000 years before Einstein, telling us that material nature and the living entity, so not just the soul, but also material nature, is understood to be beginningless or eternal. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So these transformations that you see are all products of material nature, the changes in the world that you see. Nature is said to be the cause of all material activities and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Oh my gosh. The living entity is the cause of all of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. We've got to understand this deeply. We are the cause of all suffering and enjoyment, not only at a global level, not only at a national level, but also internally, each and every one of us. We are responsible for whether we are suffering or whether we are enjoying this world. If you want to stop suffering, the end of suffering lies within you, because all suffering exists in the mind. Therefore it has been said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. It's optional because suffering exists in your mind. And if you have learned how to control your mind, how to direct your mind, how to interpret things the way that serve you, to understand things in a way that are much deeper than just what is on the surface, then you will not experience the suffering that most people experience. If you're able to be still in the middle of the turbulent waters of this world, you will not suffer the way most people do. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the Supreme Proprietor, who exists as the overseer and the permitter, who is known as the Supersoul or the Paramatma. So this is referring to the presence of God in all of us, who is enjoying everything that we're going through, who owns everything, who is the overseer and the permitter. Permitter meaning giving us the free will to do and be and have and experience everything that we desire, right? And he's known as the Supersoul or the Paramatma. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So, understanding this will give you liberation. But, there's a clause here, and we'll come to it in a moment. That Supersoul Paramatma is perceived by some through meditation, also known as Ashtanga Yoga, by some through the cultivation of knowledge, Jnana Yoga, and by others through fruitive desire, Karma Yoga, which we've talked about in the earlier parts of the Gita. There are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth. So if you hear about this knowledge from someone and you begin to act upon it, that too will bring you. It's not like, somebody sitting out in the middle of the wilderness who's never, however you come across it, even if you accidentally come across it, even if you accidentally begin to come across any part of it, your journey has begun. And so these are the symptoms of a person who has actually arrived there. And so we should know what we're looking for. Jnana Chakshu, or the vision of knowledge. So knowledge is not here an intellectual thing, but is actually a way of seeing and experiencing the world. Whatever you see in existence, both moving and non-moving, is only the combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. So the knower of the field is the soul, and the field of activities is the body, and through the body, everything that you're experiencing, the senses, mind, and all of that. Right? One who sees the Supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies. Now this is very important. Recognizing that God is present in everyone, in all bodies. And who understands that neither the soul nor the Supersoul is ever destroyed, such a person actually sees. One who sees the Supersoul in every living being and equal everywhere does not degrade himself by his own mind, thus he approaches the transcendental destination. Why won't you degrade yourself by your own mind? Because once you recognize that God is in everyone and in everything, you will treat all of them with the utmost of respect. You will not manipulate, abuse, or try to play power games or put down anyone or abuse anyone. Or no, because you see God in all of them. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created by material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, the soul does nothing, I am actually doing nothing, the body is just going on doing its things, reacting to the world, reacting to the input from the senses. When you begin to see that I'm just sitting here watching, the soul is actually the witness. And that's called witness consciousness by people. So that witness consciousness is actually observing you doing all the stuff you're doing. The body is going through all its motions, the field of activities, right? But the self does nothing at all. When a sensible person ceases to see different identities which are due to different material bodies, one attains the Brahman conception. Thus one sees that beings are expanded everywhere. So keep this in mind, that these different bodies, these different identities, these different people, that's all the part of the material manifestation. But the soul within everyone, within every being, within every single being is the same as yours and is the same as God. So learning to look past the veil of what you see in front of you is vital to this experience. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. And there's a beautiful example here. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Please hear this one carefully. It's vital to understand this. The sky, due to its subtle nature, the subtlety is important, the subtlety of the soul is also subtle in nature, the sky is subtle in nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. So the Supersoul, the Paramatma, and the individual soul do not mix with matter. Oil and water do not mix, just like that. Similarly, the soul does not mix with the body, though situated in the body. So you can meet someone, you can understand that they are maybe doing some terrible things or going through some horrible things, but look through that veil and see the soul of the person. And the soul of every being you will discover, if you look deeply enough, is beautiful, is the same spiritual essence. O Arjun, as the sun alone illuminates this universe, so does the living entity, the soul within the body, illuminate the entire body through consciousness. So see the analogy, as the sun illuminates the universe, so also the soul illuminates the entire body through consciousness. One who knowingly sees the difference between the body and the owner of the body and can understand the process of liberation from this bondage attains the supreme goal. With that, we end chapter 13, And I'm going to open things up for questions now. So give me a moment. I'll be with you. Okay. Okay. Right. So any questions? I'm sorry we've taken a long time. You can unmute yourself. There was a lot to cover here, so. I'm not hearing you. Why is that? Hold on a minute. There has to be a reason here. Okay, I figured it out. Yes, I should be able to hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no wonder I did interrupt twice. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
I wasn't hearing you at all.
Yeah, I thought so. I have a comment or a question. I'm not sure what it is. You said in between that we always run either behind pleasure or pain.
Right.
Can you expand?
Well, the mind tries to avoid pain and it goes towards pleasure. So everything we do is from that place, right? Wherever there is pleasure, we try to go there. We'll avoid the people who cause us pain. But what is pain really? It's something that I might subjectively perceive to be that which I like or dislike. Maybe this person didn't talk well to me, so my ego is hurt. I don't want to be around this person, right? What else could cause me pain? I fell down somewhere, I got hurt somewhere, and now I don't want to go there, or I'm scared of going there. So that's avoiding pain. And people have trauma, let's say, and then they want to avoid that. But the only way out is actually to confront that, is never to really just stay away from it forever. The very people who trigger you the most or upset you the most are actually there to help you figure out, okay, what's in me that's getting so agitated by this? And then how do I resolve that within myself? And then I can walk into that same situation and no longer be affected by it. You get it?
Yeah.
So instead of avoiding pain or going towards pleasure, there's so many things that are pleasurable, but they're not always necessarily good for you. So I gave some examples in my own life about how I was, caught up with things that were pleasurable and they weren't good for me. And so I've had to learn to be able to step back and find what is actually good for me, what is actually healthy. And even with people, it's about how can I keep my composure and not get swayed by my emotions around them. Good question. Thank you.
I have one more.
Okay. Thank you for being here and asking questions. I love it. And this whole process is about asking questions. It is all about, through questions we learn. So thank you.
Thank you. You said pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So are you saying that to accept pain because pain is going to be there irrespectively, you just need to know how do you handle it? Just give an example.
So pain is inevitable. What that means is that we will experience pain. You fall down somewhere, there'll be pain. You don't eat well, your stomach's going to be maybe having a cramp or pain or something else, right? So there are things that will cause, those are inevitable. Things are going to happen. But suffering is what we make out of that. How we interpret that, how we react to that, how we experience that. That part is in our control. And once we realize it's in my control, I can actually learn to, yes, deal with the pain, but not continue the process of suffering. Today we've entered into a culture that is very much about trauma. Everybody loves to talk about their trauma, and people bond on the basis of their trauma, and this trauma bonding goes on, and it becomes a great place for everyone to kind of connect with each other. But the reality is, you're only cementing that trauma rather than trying to heal it and get out of it. So that's not a desirable way to do things. We are identifying with the pain. We are identifying with that which was terrible and thinking, I am a victim of this or that or the other. We are seeing ourselves as that identity. The idea is to move away from all identities and all identification, especially identification either as a happy person or as an unhappy person. To move away from it all. All right, let's see. Anyone else got some questions? If not, I'll be back with you. Don't worry. If you got more, that's okay. I just want to check in.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Mariah, Rima, Gabriel, anybody else? Any questions? All right. There was a lot in there, so I hope I did not overwhelm you. But if you didn't catch it all and you feel you want to revise it, it's all on, the videos all get saved on YouTube. So you'll find them out there. Okay, last chance. Anybody else? Krishna, you got anything else? Last chance.
What was it? I had it. I forgot now. I had it. It was right there.
Okay, Mariah, anything? Mariah's gone. All right. Okay. Well then, I'll see you guys next week for another episode. I just want you to know that we're now we finished the 13th chapter. We have about 5 more to go. Thank you, Rima. Got 5 more to go. And after that, we're going to begin the Bhagavad, which is a bunch of beautiful stories and philosophy combined together. So you're going to love that part. But hang in there while we go through the rest of the Gita now. Take care. Have a wonderful week.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. Take care.